Still no victory for Spurs in 2026. The club is now in serious danger, but do they quite know it? Welcome to the latest episode of Talking Tottenham with myself, Ryan Taylor and Alasdair Gold. Talking Tottenham is sponsored by NordVPN. Morning, Ali. How are you, mate?
Oh man, it's the only thing I enjoyed about yesterday was the walk from Putney Bridge Station to Craven Cottage. It
One of the
is
best
probably
in
the
football.
nicest walk, isn't it, in the Premier League? It is beautiful. You walk along the Thames, everything seems right in the world. You see people rowing down the Thames, you see people jogging and taking their dogs in the park. And then Tottenham Hotspur come along and ruin everything. They absolutely do. It was a lovely Sunday until Tottenham started playing football, if that's what you can call it. Just utterly dreadful, honestly. I was thinking about it before the game and then only reinforced after. I think this might be one of the worst versions of Tottenham Hotspur I have seen in decades. And those previous versions at least had a star player or some big characters to get them out of trouble. I
Yeah,
can't see it in this team. Can't see it.
I know that's the problem, isn't it? I think the severity of the situation has really kind of been hammered home over the past couple of weeks. We've known Spurs are in real trouble, but it looks like a full-blown crisis beyond anything we experienced under Thomas Frank. And you just don't quite see where the next win comes from. Hopefully that is Thursday to relieve a bit of pressure. But I really just felt going into this game, I just didn't see any way that Fulham were not going to win this. And it was just a continuation of the pattern of what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Obviously, we know Fulham are really good football inside, and that's what we saw on Sunday when they just cut through Tottenham with so much ease. The scoreline really did flatter Spurs at
Oh, yeah.
come the end of the game. Obviously, Vicario made that big stop from Emil Smith Rowe, but actually Fulham missed a lot of chances as well. Let's bring it right back to the start, unfortunately, Ali, but just the lineup. I mean, slightly different maybe to what we expected, although you probably heard a few indications that maybe there was going to be a potential switch. And then once we saw the personnel, it was clear a back three probably wasn't going to be the preferred formation.
Yeah, it felt like there was going to be a bit of a shift over the course of the week, but it's just, it's like getting a kid's toy. You know, you put the round pegs in the square holes and all that sort of stuff, and it felt like it was trying to hammer them into these positions where they just didn't fit. I mean, to have Javi and Conor Gallagher as your wingers in a 4-4-2, essentially, it was just dreadful. And this will be a concern right now is that, a guy that has gone in Igor Tudor to all of these different clubs and made an instant impact has come into Tottenham. Nothing's changed for the better as of yet. It just hasn't. They're not defending well. They're not attacking well. It's nothing's really moved on, and he hasn't had the instant boost I think they hoped would happen. And that's the thing. I've looked, there's a lot to complain about this Tottenham team right now, and a lot of things that need fixing, absolutely. And of course, the injury list is still there, and it's only ever so gradually getting better. But also, the coach has got to come in and make decisions that best fit the team. And unfortunately, it didn't feel like that with the formation. It felt like a formation where everyone was just wondering what they were meant to be doing rather than a set plan. There were times when some of the one of the centre backs would follow like Smith Rowe all the way into the opposition half, and it's like, not sure that's going to work. I get that someone needs to be on him, but should it be one of the centre backs in a back four, because it could constantly leave space? He'd come back, and they do the old classic of playing a couple of first time passes and get behind Tottenham's defence. So yeah, formation was a puzzling one for me, and obviously poor Archie Gray kind of Mr. Swiss Army knife chucked in at left back, and it didn't suit him at all. And he wasn't given any help by Xavi first, and then later Matisse Tell, although some good stuff about Matisse Tell we can kind of talk about as this goes on. A formation that didn't work, strike force that didn't look like they really knew how to play alongside each other, a midfield. And that's the irony. If you've got Paulinho and Basuma sitting in front of a back four, on paper, that should be the most kind of protected back forever. If anything, it should be too defensive. But Spurs were neither too defensive nor too attacking. They were just a big old bowl of meh. They were just, I mean, they're often struggle at Craven Cottage, but this was kind of a new low in terms of the lack of output. One shot on target the entire game, and that was the goal.
Yeah. Before we come on to the actual goals themselves, Ali, I think one thing that really stood out for me, particularly when you watch back the highlights, is just the kind of stark contrast in quality of play. I mean, Fulham, we know they're a good side, repeatedly finished sort of just outside the European places, but the interchanging, the passing between the lines, the slick movement. I mean, I cannot remember the last time I saw a Spurs performance where there was this kind of interchangeable attack. And, you know, you touched upon the fact that it doesn't feel like Igor Tudor has quite found the right sort of formula in terms of system. And we know a couple of players are having to play out of position. But I refuse to believe that there's not one way of sort of getting a better structure and organisation. I mean, to kind of fluctuate from that sort of that back three that we saw in the first game to then go to a 4-4-2 and to still look so sort of far away from being kind of just a competent team. I think it's a real concern. And my biggest worry is that obviously the time is now running out. So you can experiment all you want, but there's no real time to kind of get to grips with what is actually the best team for Spurs at this moment in time. We know the injuries are a massive problem, but I just get a little bit fearful that Tudor needs to kind of establish quickly the best team. And at the moment, we've seen two experiments that have gone horribly wrong. So that is my worry. And as you said, you know, Conor Gallagher playing at right midfield. I mean, we were talking off air, but that was a role he kind of adopted at times under Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. But he's not a wide midfielder. He's a midfield player, and ultimately, whenever he's been in central midfield, I have to say it. I have to be brutally honest. I just haven't seen it from Gallagher. I think he's been very poor on the ball. We lost possession a number of times in the first half against Fulham. And there's no real kind of, you look at his World Cup prospects, and I just think he'll be a million miles away, unfortunately, from making the final squad. And, you know, when he's been your marquee January signing, I think that is a major concern. We can talk all about, you know, what happens on the field, but you look at this team and you just feel, again, that the Spurs hierarchy have badly let the club down, and they could pay the ultimate price for not strengthening in January because, as we said, you know, a number of players are playing as makeshift, you know, fullbacks and wingers, and it's just so poor.
Well, Xavi and Conor Gallagher, that's £81 million worth of talent they've brought in. And it's £81 million of talent they don't really seem to know what to do with. And there's going to be question marks over whether they are even the right signings or not. I still believe both can have a big part in the Spurs going forward. But right now, you know, that's the problem, isn't it, with having so few players, is they're being used out of necessity and in positions that don't fit them. Look, I'm no tactical expert by any stretch of the imagination, but even you'd think a 4-2-3-1 would have fitted those players he had out there better yesterday. And yeah, with Gallagher playing on the right, there's two things to that kind of make no real sense. One is that it does expose his limitations as a player. I think there's a lot he can do very well on a football pitch. I think asking him to try and be a winger and beat his man and get to the byline and all that is just not going to be part of his game. But there's also the ridiculous aspect of who have they replaced? Who is he replacing? Who's he brought in to kind of come in as a straight swap in the transfer market for? Brennan Johnson. You've got Brennan Johnson, who would have played on the right wing. You know, we can have discussions over whether he beat his man enough, not all that sort of stuff. But what he would certainly do was he would get the ball into the box for the strikers. That's just what he did. That was part of his game. And he would get onto balls from the other side and he would finish off chances. So you've essentially taken out a player who, regardless of your opinion on him, could score goals. He would set up goals. And you've replaced him with a player who that's not his job. It is the most baffling transfer swap in a way I've ever seen, or one of them that I've seen Spurs do, probably since they sold Dimitar Berbatov and thank you very much, Man United will have Fraser Campbell on loan. It's like, it's just, I'm not saying the kind of levels of players are the same, but it is baffling. And I 100% agree on the January window. It is one of the biggest gambles Tottenham have taken in decades. It really is. If they were to go down, there's a lot of other bigger things going on at the club, but that January window will have been an absolute disgrace of a gamble that didn't pay off. They're just hoping upon hope that players are going to come back in time, but they might not. Last season they were hoping for players to come back, and they ended up going into the Europa League final stages with more new injuries. They lost Maddison, Kulusevski, Bergvall all in the later weeks. Yeah, exactly, in the last few weeks of the season. So it's a bizarre route to take, this hope that injuries will clear up at a club where they don't clear up. So yeah, I still cannot buy this whole there's no short-term options that would have helped us until the end of the season. I cannot imagine with their accumulated data, knowledge, scouts, all of that, they could not find a single person, not saying on a permanent deal. I know people will bring up Lookman and they'll say what he's done at Atletico and the fact that he's going to come up against Spurs, which could obviously be an absolute nightmare if things kind of are shown up in that way. But I could understand, okay, maybe you can't get Lookman on a temporary. You'd have to buy him as a permanent player, and that doesn't fit in the long-term thing. But I'm sorry, there must have been players that they could have got in on loan, or even, and I know a lot of fans have been saying this, using some of the young players or recalling players from loan. That was the other option they had in January as well. It's just a huge, huge gamble, and I think a lot of Tottenham's long-term views on things, it'll all be all right in the future way of looking at things, it's kind of coming home to roost right now. They're a club that look to the future in their signings. They'd rather sign potential players for the future than ready-made signings. They're a club that everyone else is spending money, and they were kind of looking at it going, well, they're going to get in PSR trouble. They're going to be in trouble and we'll be fine. And it's like they're always looking so far into distance that they just trip up on what's right in front of them. And unfortunately, it just feels like a time where everything is coming home to roost, and they're going to need some big characters to get out of it. And you just look around the team and the club and you just wonder where those big characters are.
Definitely. I think you make some great points there, Ali. I mean, thinking back to January, we were both at the Sunderland game when Mohamed Kudus got the thigh injury, and it was pretty quick actually that Thomas Frank confirmed that he would be out until after the March international break. So there was a really straightforward kind of diagnosis there, particularly given that we know Frank, when it came to injuries, was kind of very coy and sort of skeptical at times in terms of giving away information. But I mean, one player was staring him right in the face yesterday, Harry Wilson. I mean, yes, he is 28, I believe, but he's into the final months of his Fulham contract. So I don't think for 1 minute, if Spurs were to put a bit of money on the table, I don't know how much. And yes, long term, is Harry Wilson the best signing for Spurs? But as a squad player, I think he'd be terrific. He nearly went to Leeds last summer. I mean, he's having a great season. I think it's 9 goals and 8 assists now in the Premier League. Someone like that, just to kind of lift. I still don't agree that, selling Brennan Johnson without a replacement was the right thing to do. But someone like that, I think fans maybe could have accepted at that moment in time, and they wouldn't have had this problem where they're having to shoehorn players like Conor Gallagher in on the right flank. Let's just move on to some of the goals now, Ali. I mean, the first one, it's taken us a little bit of time to kind of mention this, but it was an absolute disgrace. Let's call it for what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Spurs know better than anyone, particularly after that Kolo Muani goal was ruled out last weekend, that there needs to be some level of consistency. I mean, it is utterly ridiculous that, one can be ruled out and one can stand, one can be ruled out. But all it basically boils down to is Gabriel making more of a theatrical fall to the ground than maybe Radu Dragusin.
Yeah, I mean, look, Radu Dragusin is a huge guy. If he falls like that, and there was no theatrics to it, but he falls like that, he's going to have had a bit of a shove. He's going to have to. And the more I've watched it back, the more you can see how he is pushed out of the path of the ball. It is just, it's mad. And I keep getting told that it's more to do with the fact of the on-field decision and whether VAR can then present a case of whether it's a clear and obvious error in the decision. And that's what I'm being told. It's like different moments, different on-field decisions, but the same idea of you've got to present a case that's strong enough. I feel like the case is strong enough. I don't understand it. I just don't get that aspect, that logic behind it. And it is so frustrating. Look, everything, VAR and refereeing decisions are not going to be the reason that if the worst happens and Spurs go down, it is not because of VAR. That is one thing that is not helping them, but certainly it is something to have a gripe about and complain about from the Spurs fans, as well as everything else going on, because the inconsistency is maddening. You know, you've got the Ekitike push on Romero. You know, that's not a foul. That's absolutely fine. There's a push on Dragishin. No, that's absolutely fine. You're allowed to push. You can push someone out the path of the ball and head it. That's absolutely fine, apparently. But if you are a Tottenham player and you lay your hand on the back of a defender, no, that's a foul. No goal. And it's like, what are you doing? It's one of those crazy things. And I'm sure the club will have made their case towards whether it has to be the Premier League or the PGMOL. I don't know who they'll kind of have to direct their complaints to. I'm sure they will have. Kind of people suggesting they haven't. I'm sure they will have, because you need every little advantage you can kind of get, or stopping a disadvantage. But yeah, it was a mad. I mean, again, another goal for Harry Wilson. It was a good finish, left on his own, which wasn't a good thing. An unfortunate Conor Gallagher deflection as well involved in all of that. But ultimately, there's a moment when a Spurs player was fouled in the box and it was not given. And Igor Tudor absolutely, he blew up on the sideline, and his press conference, he was an angry man, wasn't he?
Yes. Obviously, you were sat in there, Ali. Just give us the rundown of. I know he's done a few broadcast interviews as well and made some separate interesting comments. But we were kind of discussing off air about whether kind of the language, obviously English isn't his strongest language, but he basically accused Raul Jimenez of cheating. But I guess, you know, sort of earning an unfair advantage by definition, I suppose that is cheating.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there's
a strong word, doesn't it? But
it is a strong word. I mean, and as you said, there's a couple of broadcast interviews where his language is different. There's one where he talks about the referee and being more of a home team referee, I think was the expression he used. And I'm sure that will be looked at, because, you know, this is the irony, isn't it? Is that decisions aren't really looked at, rectified, apologized for, but what you say in reaction to them is. And I'm sure it'll be looked at, but I'm sure also he could quite easily say, with the language barrier, look, what I'm saying is it was a referee. I meant to say that's a referee who was giving, it felt, more decisions towards the home team and was maybe influenced by the crowd or whatever. And it was the Spurs fans. They're doing ironic cheers for the referee way into the game when he finally was giving fouls for Tottenham. And that's just, you know, it did feel like that kind of game when nothing was going for Spurs, especially after that early moment. The cheat stuff, I think that's just him saying that he's getting an unfair advantage and being able to profit from him. I've got a couple of quotes from the press conference. He said, "Of course it's a foul. 99 of 100 people will say it's a foul because it's so obvious. Sometimes the criteria doesn't have consistency. Last week, what happened in our game against Arsenal, same thing. One situation before, we conceded a goal, they didn't get a foul, and then they give it. So it's incredible." And then the cheat stuff, he was actually asked if the referee had given him an explanation for what had happened. And he said, no, I was too nervous to speak with him because it's so obvious. Sometimes they don't understand it's enough, even small contact. If it gives you an advantage to score the goal, then you need to cancel this, finish it. It's not a normal duel where he's just a bit soft. He pushes with his hand and he doesn't watch the ball. It's just easy to get the advantage, and it's ridiculous to not give the foul because the consequence is too big. It's not a small foul in the middle of the pitch. It's a goal afterwards. And then he goes into the bit about cheating a little bit later on, because it was a proper epic rant. But this is the irony. The other day, he told me that he hadn't watched the Conte rant after the Southampton game, his final press conference. This was kind of similar. It's like a similar vein without all the talk of alibis and stuff. He said he was thinking how to cheat. He was not thinking about the ball. He cheated the player with pushing and they scored the goal. It's cheating and there's a foul. And that's it. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. He said there's no logic in this decision, and he's not wrong at all.
So the Premier League Match Centre tweeted after the VAR check or the goal was given that it was checked and confirmed by VAR, who deemed it not to be enough contact to meet the threshold for a foul. So, I mean, I don't know what the threshold is, because
Did they get it mixed up? Are they sure that wasn't the tweet that should have been after the Arsenal game?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can talk about, again, we speak on it in pretty much every podcast, Ali, that there's been so many moments that have gone against Spurs and that have led to this kind of domino effect. It's interesting because I think anyone that watches back that game will not dispute that Fulham were worthy victors and that they scored 4-5. But when you actually look at it in black and white, 2-1, and one of the goals should have been chalked off, that could have been an important point for Tottenham. So I do sympathise with Igor Tudor, and also, the supporters that are kind of thinking, when is this nightmare going to end? Because it is just this, it's the perfect storm in the sense, isn't it, of just all these things that are sort of going to get, well, it's not perfect in many ways, but, all these things seem to be going against the club.
Yeah.
At this
7
moment.
minutes in. 7 minutes in, and you're a team that's fragile in confidence. It's the worst thing, as you say, that could happen to you in that moment.
Definitely. So the second goal, Ali, again, Harry Wilson involved, teeing off Alex Iwobi. I mean, it's a great strike. Is there any question marks about Vicario? I've got to ask the question only because of the kind of range, and he does kind of get a little bit on it, but it sneaks just inside the post. It's a very precise and powerful finish. Great technique as well, I have to say. But I know there will be some people that maybe question whether Vicario could have done better.
I think there's fingers to be pointed everywhere. I think Vicario possibly. I think it was a good strike. It was a weird strike when you kind of watch it.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, he said afterwards.
Right.
Yeah, he kind of said afterwards about, because it's like a like side-footed finish. Iwobi said, something about, it's my groins. No one else has got the groins I've got. Yeah. Something like that. It was really weird.
Groin, something like that. Because you have to generate a lot of power from that kind of technique.
Yeah. It was incredible groin ability. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's an element of everyone in terms of, yes, I don't think Vicario probably should be being beaten from that angle, although it is a very fast rocket of a finish, despite it being a side footer. I think Archie Gray's been pulled inside following another player. You could argue that should he be doing that? It depends. He's trying to cover for someone else. But then what annoyed me about the goal as well was there was two kind of big important players who didn't do their job. Solanke starts to track Iwobi and just stops. And Xavi Simons just looks across as if to go, yeah, that's not my job. Mm-hmm. And it just allowed him all the time in the world to have this shot. And it was just awful defending. And this is the problem, isn't it? Is no one's fixing the defending at Tottenham. All the talk about Postecoglou's team not being able to defend, blah, blah, blah. And now we've got another season where two different managers don't seem to be fixing what's right in front of them either. It was
that's also on the players, though, isn't it, Ali? Because
not doing
for the
job.
First goal, one of the first things I noticed, and it was the same last week for the Eze opener, I cannot believe how many players are actually, Spurs players, are inside the box, yet everyone's kind of looking at each other as if to say, no, you should be picking him up, you should be. Someone has to take responsibility, and all of them should be, really. But it's kind of a blame game. And again, like I said, I was surprised at how many Tottenham players were inside the box, because it's not like sort of he's got a free reign on either goal. It's just poor marking and poor kind of switching on. It's mental kind of responsibility at the same time, isn't it? Like, do I want to make that extra yard, or can I be bothered, or I might leave him and hopefully we get away with it?
Absolutely. You're so right. SEF, someone else's fault. That's what it is. Yeah. It's always someone else's job. These players, the lack of the thing that wound me up more than anything was the second balls yesterday. Oh my goodness. I don't know the stats, but I wouldn't be shocked if Fulham won 99% of second balls on the pitch. There's this thing almost like they're programmed, we have to challenge for this. But if we don't, we don't. That's fine. And it's like the ball breaks every time a Fulham player was picking it up. And this is not one game. This has happened loads of games. And it all kind of boils down to this whole, do they really know how much danger they're in and the club's in and staff at the club are in? You know, relegation would be disastrous for Spurs in so many respects. You know, it's not just about those players who probably the bulk of them will swan off they would to another club elsewhere. You know, there's the staff that work at the club and the threat and danger over their jobs if the revenue is not coming in. That's the same. There's all of this aspect. But are this team exactly playing like a team or a squad that what they've got available that knows of this real peril that they're just kind of just hanging over this precipice and they don't look to be looking down? It's like they're looking around them and don't realize they're right on the edge right now. And their football does not reflect that. There is no absolutely throwing themselves into stuff. There's no 100% desire because there's a difference as well. They can go out there and say, we tried. But there's a difference between that and giving absolutely everything on that pitch and leaving it out there. And that's what they need to be doing, because that will go some way to overcoming some of the deficiencies in the team right now. Because, like you say, they're not picking up players. They're not doing their jobs. They're not doing the things that are asked of them. And that second ball, if you're going to lose a second ball every time, you're inviting pressure on yourself with every possible moment of football being played. There is no one for me standing up right now of any senior player saying, follow me, lads, do what I do this. And that's comes down to the types of characters in that dressing room. It comes down to a captain who, while he might have been right in what he said, going on about player availability, has made himself unavailable for these, what we're in the fourth of 4 matches coming up. You know, there is no one leading this club, and that's what scares me. It does. And yeah, you saw it. So sorry, that was a rant. It wasn't really even kind of connected to what you originally said, but it just started to annoy me the more I was speaking about it. But it does come down to those moments as well. Those moments in defending, the moments in marking, assuming it's someone else's job rather than just doing the job yourself.
Another concern of mine, Ali, is that not to be too reactionary, and I think it's important to kind of try and be level-headed when you analyse and assess the current situation. But I am concerned that some of the players may look at Igor Tudor and think, you know, he's not managed in the Premier League before. He's had a kind of record and reputation where he's kind of gone into clubs and fixed things, but, you know, he has left or been sacked. He's bounced around, you know, a number of different countries. But some of the players I'm concerned might sort of not warm to him in the sense that, you know, he's not achieved anything sensational in his career. His only trophy is winning, you know, the Croatian Cup with Hajduk Split. And yes, this isn't about winning trophies, but to me, you at least want a manager that maybe has achieved something that can, I don't know, inspire you. And what I would say to kind of counteract that is if I started a new job, I would find it, you know, unfair if people were sort of judging me on the basis of 2 weeks' work. I think you need time to settle in and adjust to new surroundings. Obviously, time is of the essence. But I'm just a little bit concerned that, you know, having picked two sort of very different lineups, that actually there might be some concerns in, you know, even if they don't discuss them amongst the squad, just in your own kind of head when you're assessing the game after you've played, to think, is this guy, you know, I'm not too inspired and he's a little bit confused in his messaging maybe. I think it's easy for him to say, we need to do this, we need to run, we need to, but ultimately the two kind of tests he's had so far, you know, I think there's a fair argument that maybe the setup of the team was wrong. Maybe that's harsh for the Arsenal game, but I just think, I don't know, I'm not really seeing that inspiration and that kind of, there's no real lift, and that's surprising when a new manager's come in, that the place hasn't really been lifted.
Yeah, what I would say, and playing devil's advocate in this, is that, or just taking the other view to kind of show another side to it, if that is what the players are thinking, then that would be absolutely disgraceful because they've had every different kind of manager and consistently failed. So I'm sorry, there's got to be a point where they also look at themselves.
Oh, definitely.
Igor Tudor, yes, you could say as a manager, maybe, but this is a player that played for almost a decade at Juventus, won 2 Serie A titles, Champions League final. This is not just some randomer that has kind of rocked up out of, some back alleyway to go, hi, I want to be Tottenham manager. It's like, this is a guy who has been kind of educated in the way of a big club like Juventus as a player, as a centre back, has played with some of the best as well as seen the best, and he just kind of he's gone into clubs and he has fixed them. And why has he gone in and fixed them each time in the short term, 3-4 months or so? It's because the players have listened to him and done what he's asked. Only at Tottenham could he come in and they've gone, sorry, what? And they haven't done what he's asked of them. So yeah, I think that would be some cheek of the Spurs players to kind of consistently fail and then consistently point at the manager and say, no, Dave. I mean, this one hasn't got Premier League experience. The last one did, but not good enough to what we wanted. The one before that, he only won trophies. He didn't have Premier League. There's always going to be something that they can look to pin on the manager. But ultimately, the players have got to do that job on the pitch. And when they're not doing basic things on the pitch, that's nothing to do with the manager. That is a player and their heart and desire. And I know it's an old cliche, but it really is. And that's why he keeps going on about the running, because it is. It's attacking movement comes from running. Defensive tracking comes from running. Should just be a base requirement. I saw a table of like kilometers covered, and I'm pretty sure Spurs were right down the bottom of it. That should never, ever be the case for any football team. Should be at the bottom of the table. I know someone has to, but they shouldn't be in a position where they're anywhere near that, Tottenham.
No, definitely. Just to kind of counteract that, Ali, I don't think necessarily if any players are thinking that way, I don't think they would be solely pinning it on the manager. I think all of them will know that they've been nowhere near good enough. And it's not a case of excuses. I just kind of feel there might be an element of doubt maybe as to you've sort of got a new manager in and the first 2 games have gone really poorly. It's just your confidence is at an all-time low. And do you kind of look at Igor Tudor as the man that's going to kind of inspire and this kind of drastic shift between now and the end of the season? I don't kind of see that. That's the only thing I'd say.
I think, like I said, look at the bigger picture. That's what they need to do.
Exactly. No, 100%. We're around about the halfway point of the show, Ali. You're going to take back over the duties of delivering the benefits of NordVPN. I think I made a bit of a mess of that one, but I am going to tell you after about Saley. We've got another great offer on Saley, the eSIM. So do you want to go first, Ali?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't let 1 or 2 comments get in your head. While I did feel like I'd been cheated on by the Nord words, absolutely. What you did was absolutely great. And what you did was get out there exactly why Nord is a terrific service and why we use it all the time. And you'll no doubt be using it as well as on your travels in the future. And I certainly will. I've got the trip to Madrid coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I will certainly be using Nord out there to help me, whether I'm watching stuff from back home on my various streaming services I use in the UK, also at the game. Sometimes you can't get good replay screens and stuff, so I'll have to go back to the coverage back home, which I wouldn't be able to access unless I use NordVPN and made my device think it was back in the UK. And the flip side of that, maybe, when I'm looking at places like Madrid, I could use my phone or my tablet, make it think it's in Spain, and then I might get a better deal on that hotel. I might get a better deal on flights. I might be going to a concert. I won't have time to do that this time because we'll have a match to report and a press conference. But if I were to go to a concert, let's say, it might be cheaper to buy it from the destination city. So, yeah, Nord's been really helpful for me over the years, wherever I've been. You can switch your virtual location to thinking it wherever it is. It stops you in a certain degree when you're using public Wi-Fi from nasty people getting in and taking various things. It's got the NordVPN threat protection feature. It protects you from viruses, malware, and it is also the fastest VPN in the world, which means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without you bandwidth throttling. Essentially, it's premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month, and one NordVPN account can be used on up to 10 different devices. We can also get you the best discount off your NordVPN plan. If you go to nordvpn.com/talking Tottenham, our link gives you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And on top of that, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And the link, in case you just missed it, there is in the podcast episode description box. And you're going to tell us about Saley, which I have used many times and I will be using again, maybe even Madrid, actually.
Yes, for any Spurs fans heading over to the Wanda Metropolitano, if you're drinking pints of beer in Plaza de Mayor, we've got a great deal for you with Saley. So it's an eSIM, which basically eliminates all those nasty kind of roaming fees that you experience once you leave the UK. Fast and reliable and safe internet connection upon arrival at your destination. So if you need to let your loved ones know that you've arrived safe and sound, Saley will help you with all of that. And it's also got built-in cybersecurity features as well. So it eliminates all those nasty kind of malicious ad blockers. And you can also switch your location so that your phone still thinks it's back home. So you can still access a number of different apps and things like that. If you want to go on Sky Go and have a little look at some of the episodes that you're missing out on while you're on your travels, Saley is the eSIM for you. So all you need to do is to download Saley in your app store and use our code TalkingTottenham at checkout, and you'll get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. For further details, you can go to saley.com/talkingtottenham. Richarlison was back on the score sheet, Ali. I saw a great tweet from someone, I'm sure you might have seen it as well, to say Richarlison is the best pick the ball out of the back of the net and run back goal scorer in world football, because it does feel like a lot of the time I do see Richarlison wrestling with a defender to try and get the ball. It was actually a really well worked goal, Ali. Great work from Matthias Tell. Archie Gray involved as well, kind of done well to sort of dig the cut back out. I think the pass back from Tell, I think it was a back heel, wasn't it? It was
flicked it to him. I can't remember if it was a back heel or not.
I remember thinking when the pass was made that it was kind of sort of caught behind him a little bit, but he done well, got to the byline, got the cross back to the back post, and it was nodded in. Did you ever feel like, Ali, that goal was ever going to lead to potential comeback or equaliser, or was it always kind of a consolation as such?
I've got to be honest, no. Although there was a very last gasp moment when I think Paulinho had a shot that was blocked in front of goal, and that could have snatched them, to be honest, an undeserved point. You're right, though. You do kind of associate Richarlison with getting consolation goals, don't you? And that's not to do down his goals in any way, but he does seem to, if anything, you could argue he's a guy you can kind of, who'll try and save situations for you. That was a good old battle he had with Calvin Bassey, because Colomwani was absolutely bullied by him throughout the game. And I think Richarlison came on and was really, gave him something to think about, and his movement to peel away for the goal was terrific. It was probably one of only 2-3 moments of attacking quality Spurs had in the entire game. Good driving run by Archie Gray. First by Tell. Tell's run to go all the way up the left flank just brought something that the other players didn't have down that flank. Knocks it off to Archie Gray. I did wonder if, yes, in trying to control the ball, he'd taken it too far, but he did brilliantly. Again, left-footed cross. And it's not the first time he's done that either. Hits the back post, and there's Richarlison. Yes, cue little battle with, I think it was Bassey, to try and get the ball back, to take it back to the centre circle. The only other 2 moments of attacking quality I can remember were first half, there was a little interchange of passes. Dragishin played to Basuma. Basuma played to Porro, who hit it first time into Colomwani's path. And Bassey, actually, it was again, who slid in and made a really good challenge. And that's the kind of level we're at now, where I see a little thing like that. It's like, ooh, they can pass again. But it was such an outlying thing. And then, there was a little moment later on with Tell played it into Sousa's pass. Sousa made a bit of a scuffed effort at trying to knock the ball inside, but Sarr nipped in, got it, and hit it into the side netting. That was it. 3 moments. Other than that, it was let's rely on free kicks, long throws. They even brought on Kevin Danso to take long throws at the end because Radu Dragusin, the biggest, strongest man you'll probably ever find at a football club, has the throwing power of essentially a mouse. Yeah. I mean, I think in my talking points, I compared it to like a T-Rex trying to take a long throw. Like there's little arms, and he has not got little arms, but he could just generate not a single iota of power in these throws. It was like Spurs fans will remember towards the end of Christian Eriksen's times, his corners, which would just never beat the first man. Yeah. And it was like that. It was like, you're better off getting anyone else to take that throw, and maybe Dragusin can go a bit closer and flick it on, get it, switch it around a bit. But yeah, it was good goal, but ultimately, unfortunately, led to nothing other than, I think I looked at Richarlison's stats. I think he's got something like 8 goals and 3 assists in 2021. Yeah, it's not actually that bad. It's essentially a goal involvement every other game, I think I worked out as. And bearing in mind, obviously, we know he's had his recent injury issues, but over the course of the season has probably been more available than he has over the previous campaign. So,
and his contract's obviously sort of nearing its end.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that shapes.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think obviously it will depend on whether ultimately Spurs are a Premier League club. We know there's kind of been interest from Brazil, MLS as well, Saudi Arabia. So I do think a decision needs to be made at the end of the season on Richarlison. I just don't quite see him as that reliable striker that consistently produces, unfortunately, which is a shame because when he does play well, he had that purple patch under Ange. He's, he's a very good Premier League forward, but ultimately he hasn't been that consistent. One thing we do need to discuss, Ali, is something you've covered this morning, which is a social media post which has now been deleted from the official Premier League account, and it's regarding Vicario. So for anyone who's not seen the post, you'll now not be able to because it's now vanished. But it's centered around a free kick, which you might have seen in the game second half, where I think it's Dragusin or Van der Ven allows Vicario to take this free kick. There's a few Spurs forwards trying to make a few runs up top, and Vicario basically just overhits a long ball, which sort of trickles on out for a goal kick to Fulham. But the Premier League kind of posted it in a way that was virtually mocking Vicario, which is not very professional, particularly for the official account of the entire league. And you've got some further details on this story, Ali, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Very quickly, only because I'll forget it. On Richarlison, what I would say this season, he's the kind of player Spurs need in their lineup. He is a fighter. Yeah. He is someone that they do need. But yeah, on to this post. It was weird. I saw it, and it's one of those, and I think a fair few other journalists had this same opinion as well. They kind of looked at it, assumed it was some kind of banter kind of social media account or some other like outlet that like pokes fun with little videos, and he looked up a bit, it's like, what's the Premier League? The Premier League are actually posting this. It was very odd. It had the caption, just how the play was drawn up, and then as he kind of goes to kick it, the video kind of said, an interesting free kick from Vicario with a laughing emoji. And then as the ball goes to no one, it's just got whoops with another laughing emoji. It's like, what is this? This is so weird. It's like, why are you essentially encouraging a pylon onto a player who we know his kicking's very inconsistent, and it was abysmal at times yesterday. But should the Premier League be commenting on that? It's like, you are the organisation, you're the institution. This is one of the players in one of your teams in your thing. It was very odd. And bearing in mind, they've got 45 million followers on X, formerly Twitter. They've got another 25 million on TikTok. And it's like, what are you doing? This is an organisation that will also post things about mental health, and we'll talk about player welfare and things like that. And then in the next breath, they're saying, right, this is rubbish, isn't it? It's like, what are you doing? That is incredible. And yeah, from what I understand, Spurs got in touch with the Premier League at various levels and made it very clear how poor that was from something that is meant to be the voice of the league, and like I said, the league should not be mocking its own teams. Very odd. And yes, shortly after, kind of a few of us, and obviously the clubs, probably the biggest factor of it all going after the Premier League, the post was deleted from their various channels. I did approach the Premier League for comment, and they hadn't got anything back to me as of this point. But yeah, it was just odd, really odd thing to do, and especially at a time when Spurs fans are so furious with the inconsistency of decisions against them, and they're seeing this as this bigger kind of overriding thing from the Premier League. To then do this, and actually, it kind of coupled with the fact that earlier on Sunday, which I didn't really have an issue with, but they posted the Harry Wilson goal from the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which obviously came from a Vicario messy kind of kick with no one covering him. On its own, that's fine. That's what happened in the last game. But then to kind of bookend it at the end of the day with, look what Vicario's done again, kind of thing. It's like, what are you doing? So, yeah, I mean, it's been deleted now. I don't know whether there's been any private apology or anything, but very, very strange from the, like I said, the voice of the competition. I think, we were speaking about this before we came on air. I think there's no issue with little silly things that happen, little funny things in games that don't really harm anyone. And you can absolutely have a lighter side to football. There's no issue with that. But just taking a kick that went to no one, which probably happens 20, 30 times in a game, just highlighting one of those, I just thought it was really odd. Look, is it the biggest thing and the most troublesome and worrying thing that have happened to Tottenham in the last few days or year or whatever? No, but it was just a really odd thing that caught everyone's attention.
Definitely. I think it's the way the world's going at the moment, isn't it? Everything seems to be about kind of these social media clips that kind of blow up. And that just doesn't strike me as the kind of thing. Because we've seen a lot recently with football clubs posting on TikTok, slightly different to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Actually, TikTok is being used as a site where you can actively mock the opponent. I think Wolves done it recently after they drew with Arsenal. I think Martinelli was sort of holding up two fingers in terms of showcasing the score 2-1 at the time, and then Arsenal time wasted, and then Wolves scored. So it's strange. I've never really been into TikTok. I don't use it outside of looking at kind of.
Really? I thought there was all those videos of you dancing and everything.
Yeah, no, I've not been roped into any TikTok dances. I do like to use it for. It's good for like restaurant recommendations on holiday and things to do, etc. But I mean, there does seem to be this kind of thing, as I was saying, on TikTok, you're allowed to mock the opponent. I just don't agree with any of that. Maybe I'm old school, but for the Premier League to be doing that to Vicario on X in particular, just like you said, it invites a pile on. It's just unnecessary. I think also the Premier League needs to have that kind of integrity and that kind of authority as this kind of serious institution.
Yeah,
so,
objectivity. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So that reminded me, the weirdest TikTok dance I ever saw was Daniel Levy.
Really?
Yeah, that did the rounds.
You're gonna have to send that to me. Is it legit or is it AI? Or?
No, I think it was. I think just some family member he was doing it. I'm pretty sure it was just like a family member had made a video, and it just suddenly did the rounds, and everyone saw it. It was like, okay. It's like, I mean, it's no big deal. It's not like, it's like
out of character.
No, that's it. It's more you're used to seeing this guy kind of standing there in the suit, looking quite stern at Tottenham, and it was just a bit like, okay, well, maybe he's human after all, kind of thing.
Lockdown did incredible things to people, Ali.
Well,
I think.
exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Let's move it forward. So, an absolutely massive game on Thursday. Obviously, Crystal Palace at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs actually beat Palace. Surely that wasn't their last win.
Might be. Yeah. Just after Christmas, wasn't it? And they haven't won in.
Concerning. I mean, it was a game that they were fortunate.
Everything about Tottenham is rather concerning. It really is.
I know, but when I think about that match, I mean, it was like you say, just after Christmas, and it just seems so long ago now. I feel like we've had so many games since. But Palace are a weird side at the moment. Seem to be a little bit just ahead of kind of the real troubled teams. But they've had such turmoil at the club in recent weeks and months with Oliver Glasner's future. So this is a game that on paper, Spurs really have to attack and go for the jugular. They'll be helped by the fact Maxence Lacroix is out suspended following that controversial red card at Old Trafford on Sunday. See, Palace fell to a 2-1 defeat to Manchester United. Brennan Johnson assisted Lacroix's opener in that game from a corner. and he'll be making his return. And you can't help but feel, Ali, that maybe he's going to be coming back looking to prove a point.
Oh, I'm sure he will. And I'm sure he'll get a great reception from the Spurs fans as well. But I know this is not saying that, you know, the players shouldn't do their job or anyone else shouldn't do their job, but I'm pretty sure the fans are going to do their job on Thursday night. You know, the noise we had for the North London derby, I would imagine the fans will know the magnitude of this game on Thursday night, and a team flagging in confidence that is absolutely just doesn't look like it's got any belief in itself right now. It needs 60,000 people absolutely roaring them on and pushing them on at every moment, even if there is an early setback or something. It's going to be a huge game for the club. Win it, and I think you start to, even if they go to Liverpool and you know, we know what could potentially happen at Anfield, I still think you've got something to hang on to. You can say, look what we did there. Okay, that's what we replicate. That's how we do it going forward for other big games. You know, got Forest as well coming up. They've got to go to Wolves. We haven't been there yet, have we?
No, I don't think so.
See, that has now become a completely different game. That's so different right now with what they're doing. So absolutely huge game. Brendan Johnson coming back. He will be desperate to do everything he can to show that it was a mistake to let him go and create a narrative there. Lacroix being out is obviously is a blow to them. I think he started almost all bar one of their Premier League games. Should stress, when we said Spurs hadn't won since then, we're obviously talking about Premier League games.
Yeah.
And Palace, I think, have only won 2 in 2026 in the Premier League. That's still better than Spurs 0. Spurs have collected 4 points in 2026. 4. It's absolutely incredible.
I always feel like with Palace as well, Ali, like you look at their team on paper and they just look quite dangerous. I think their front three since the January window, you've got the likes of Sarr, Gesson, Johnson behind Strand Larsen. I think they've always had that kind of defensive structure. So they're just the sort of team that are never really sort of, you're never going to have an easy game against them. And that's what concerns me, because I know if Palace turn up that they could, I mean, they've had a lot of joy at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, if my memory is correct.
Yeah. Spurs have had some stinkers against Palace. And still no Romero. You know, that's the final game of that. So what would you do? Would you go with the back three, bring Danso in, or would you bring Danso in for Dragishin, or would you keep it Van der Ven and Dragishin? I can't see that partnership at the moment working, Dragishin and Van der Ven.
I think it's got to be a back three. And we done our kind of writers 11 ahead of the Fulham game, and I wouldn't have Radu Dragishin in the starting 11. I would have Mickey Van der Ven on the left. I'd put João Palhinha as centrally at the middle of the back three, and I'd have Kevin Danso on the right side. That might be controversial, but I just feel like the way kind of Spurs are setting up at the moment with their midfield, I don't think you need like Palhinha and Gallagher. I know he played out wide right, but I think there's a lot of similar Spurs midfielders. I feel like Palhinha is kind of a leader and he can organise from the back. I would like to see a little bit more energy in midfield. Maybe Pat Matasar. I know he's a player that his form is so up and down, but I do like him. He gets about the pitch. Again, Basuma's another one very similar to Palhinha in terms of being a defensive-minded player that's limited in possession. But I think the back three is probably the way to go, and just finding a way to kind of maximise Solanke and Kolo Muani. I don't know how you do that, whether that's Xavi as the 10. I would also like to see Sousa at left wing back, and I know
just thinking the same thing.
I like left footers, and I've said it many times. I love left-footed left wing backs. I hate this kind of you get the ball to your left wing back and he's got to come inside and they know what he's going to do. No personal attack on Archie Gray or Jed Spence. I just think
feels like it. Feels like you're attacking 19-year-olds.
Yeah, no, it's just more stylistic. I remember when England played with a left wing back in Ashley Young at the World Cup, and yes, he had a great dead ball delivery, but it's just like you get the ball to him, and yes, they can shift down the line, but it's just so much better naturally in terms of passing and things like that.
Yeah, no, I just think Ryan Taylor hates Archie Gray. That'll be the title of this podcast going forward. No. I know what you mean. What annoys me about the whole Archie Gray situation is that any other club, he'd have been brought in through the right ways, the right channels, the right positions, and his development would have been really well handled. At Tottenham, it's like, Archie, we need you. We're just going to throw you here, there, and everywhere.
Mm.
And I think a little bit of exposure to different positions is great for young players. I think playing for 2 full seasons pretty much in the wrong position is probably going to stunt your development. And this is a guy who I think has got terrific technique. I mean, I just watch that cross, the cross for Richarlison. That's his left foot. I think he's got so much about him, and he's got such a great mentality as well. You know, I watch him driving the team on. But yes, absolutely. I think if you're going to play with wing backs, that gives you the opportunity to use Sousa and giving him less defensive responsibility. Just say, go on, lad, just get forward, go for it. We'll get back if you can. As you know, we'll need you to track at times, but essentially just go at that defense. And like you say, bring a bit of width, bring a bit of balance. I think it allows Porro to have more of an effect as a wing back as well, where he played for Sporting so many times. The only thing I would say with the back three, I will say one name for you, and I think it's a player that deserves to be starting matches and for some reason isn't. Where do you fit Matisse Tell?
Yeah, I mean, that is the kind of difficulty. You could maybe have a 3-4. He's not really going to play as one of those 10s behind a striker, is he? And I feel like at the moment, Tudor is going to start Kolo Muani. And obviously, Solanke is really a must pick if he's available, in my opinion. So that is the difficulty. I would absolutely hate to see him kind of crowbarred in as a left wing back.
No.
No. So I don't know.
Like Sonny in the semi-final. Spurs fans will remember that against, was it Chelsea, when he put Poch put Son as a wing back. It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, it depends what way you look at it. I mean, if it's like a 3-4-1-2, and you say, look, Van der Ven will do your covering as kind of a filling in as kind of a left back, on the pitch, then maybe you can have a license to get forward. I'm sure that's what Sonny was told. But it's difficult, Ali. I think ultimately it's good to have these kind of little decisions to make, because there was a couple of times where Spurs' team virtually picked itself because of the amount of players they had out. So
we were going to get a game at one point.
Yeah. So I also think I don't like sort of altering the team dependent on the opposition, but the fact Palace have mastered that kind of back three, I do wonder whether that affects Tudor's thinking and what position he goes with.
Yeah, I would say I get it. I absolutely do get it. I understand the logic behind going to back three, but what I would say is right now, I want players that are going to give Tottenham something different. I want players that will bring a little bit of belief into the team, because Matisse Tell, he just has an innate kind of amount of self-belief. He goes on that pitch and thinks, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to get past you. I'm going to get the ball down there. I'm going to have a shot. I'm going to cross the ball, whatever. I don't think very many of those players right now have got that same sense of confidence, and you need that. I don't think his tracking back's great. He will occasionally do it. I saw him doing one run late in yesterday's game where he told, I can't remember if it was Archie Gray or Sousa, one of the two. Probably must have been Sousa by that point. He told him, no, you go inside, I'll run here and I'll track. And he actually did that, but actually on the whole, he's a little bit iffy with his tracking back, especially I think it was a Smith Rowe chance. I'm pretty sure he left Archie Gray on his own to deal with kind of everything. But going forward, you need someone that is going to keep the ball wide, it's going to stretch the opposition, and is actually a threat. That's something that Spurs don't have. So I would try and find a way of getting him in the team. I right now probably wouldn't have Kolo Muani in it. I would probably, if you're gonna go for a front two, I'd have either Tell with Solanke, or I'd have Richarlison with Solanke if he's fit enough. Because Kolo Muani I thought was really good against Arsenal, and then was pretty awful against Fulham, to be honest. Like I said, he got bullied most of the time by Bassi. If you're going to use him, I probably prefer him in the position he doesn't really want to be in as much, which is as a winger. You know, maybe have him as a right winger. He's probably more of a natural wide man than definitely Conor Gallagher is. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see what he does. I think he needs to pick a team that will go out there and create chances. I don't think Spurs in their current mindset can go out there with a solid team and try and hope to get another 1-0 win against Palace. I don't think it works. It was Archie Gray, wasn't it, who scored against Palace?
I think it was Richarlison, wasn't it? I
Or
might
was
be
it?
wrong.
Am I
Let me
mixing up
check.
or did he set up
No,
Richarlison?
you're right. It was Archie Gray. I think, did Richarlison have one ruled out, or he missed a few chances? I'm not sure, but I seem to remember
possibly.
Richarlison.
I want fighters and threats. They're the two I want. I want fighters and threats in that team. I don't want players that are just plodding along as they have been. I want people that are going to make some kind of difference and that the crowd are going to respond to as well. It's going to be a huge decision, I think, from Igor Tudor, because get it wrong and then probably going to go and have a difficult game at Liverpool, which is kind of on the cards and what you expect. You've also got the Atletico game in there as well. And I think you approach that international break and there's going to be a lot of question marks. And I think people will be wondering, well, is he actually the right man to be the interim head coach? I think especially that game, I think the Palace one is the biggie because they were very fortunate. They've been propped up this weekend by other teams losing around them. Hugely fortunate. That table could have looked horrifying had they not been helped by I think someone was saying that every team from 13 down essentially lost or something like that. They got very, very lucky with that, but they won't. Luck does not continue to shine on teams that are, making things worse for themselves and struggling. So, yeah, massive game. And I think I would probably bring in Danso. If fit enough, I would probably bring in Richarlison. I would probably bring in Tell, and I'd figure out a way to get those three in the team, certainly. And also, I'd love to see Xavi more through the centre. He's just so wasted on the left.
Definitely. I have to agree with that. I think, like you say, he was signed as this number 10 that could, change the direction of the team, but he's been shoehorned in on the left so many times. Any fans that are listening, feel free to let us know what lineup you'd go with as well against Palace. Obviously, a massive game. Just before we go, Ali, run us through the week when you'll be speaking to Igor Tudor.
We've got Igor at 1:30 on Wednesday afternoon at Hotspur Way. And then a huge game at 8:00 on Thursday night. And then we've got that strange kind of weekend off before the European game. It's like feels like we've had a couple of weekends off with the FA Cup situation being they're not in it. It's really weird to have the weekend where I think I'm still working one of the days anyway. So I'm going to have to write about Tottenham stuff that doesn't exist. So, that'll be fun. But hopefully it's a run of games now where Spurs have got to start finding some inspiration from somewhere. Like I said at the top of this, someone needs to stand up at that club and lead the way. And hopefully we'll find out who does.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully the next time we talk, Ali, we'll be talking about a Tottenham victory. But I've said that many times this season. It hasn't quite happened. You'll have all the updates from Igor Tudor's press conference and all the coverage and reaction to Thursday's game on the football.london website. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, please go to nordvpn.com/talkingtottenham. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box below.